Okay. So we were talking about the object-oriented programming concepts. And in object-oriented programming, one of the concepts is inheritance. And inheritance is the concept where when your classes grow so much and there is so much commonality between the classes, then what you do is you create a class with all the commonalities, and then you create uncommon classes as children to those classes. And then you have a polymorphic behavior where the same thing could have same name, but different implementations. So you could have same thing or same method name, but different implementations. And we're going to be starting to look at next week onwards, some of that stuff, polymorphic behaviors. Moving on to understanding classes, objects, and encapsulation. Here is an example that if I were to create something to store information about dogs, I could create a blueprint called dog. And in that blueprint, I can say that I want to store information about the dog's name, the dog's age, the dog's breed, and the shot status. And then once I am done after creating the blueprint of the dog class, now I start implementing each one of those objects that I was talking about earlier, that each implementation on the blueprint. So I have Ginger 6, Bowser 2, and Roxy 1, and then the rest of the information about them and their shot status. So each one of these dogs is an instance or the object of the blueprint class called dog. So that's the whole idea, which you will see in chapter number 4 in 2 weeks. Now let me move on to page number 9, which talks about the features of Java programming language. So we talked about this, that Java is architecturally neutral. That means that you could create code once and you could run it on any machine. So it's architecturally neutral, and they achieved that by creating a Java virtual machine that we talked about earlier on. Dogs are in fact computers. Yeah, they have some very good traits. In terms of the environment of Java, it's very important for you to understand how the Java environment or architecture looks like. You write your source code. Once you're done writing your source code, you compile your source code and you give it to the Java compiler. Java compiler takes your source code, which is a file that ends in .java, and creates a .class file for you, which is called bytecode. Okay, so we learned about 4 things so far. Java source code, one thing. The file extension of source code is .java. After it compiles, it creates a bytecode, and the bytecode's file extension is .class. Okay. Now, when it is time to run, you run the .class version of Java, and you hand that over to your Java virtual machine. Java virtual machine has a JIT, which is called the Java interpreter or just-in-time interpreter, which takes your code, compiled code, and then interprets it on the Java virtual machine based on the underlying operating system. So that's why the operating system never sees the actual Java. It always interacts with the VM. Okay, so that's basically what the Java environment is. So Java programs are also basically called the VORAs, which is write once, run everywhere. Java applications can be console applications or can be windowed applications. But in order for you to understand Java's windowed applications, you have to understand Java. That's why in this class, you won't see the windowed Java version until the end of March or beginning of April. Maybe very, very minimal environment you will see of Java's GUI side, because it's very important for you to understand the GUI, but in order to understand the GUI, you need to understand Java first. So here is a very simple hello world program in Java. public class class name. The name of the class and the name of the file must match. And inside the public class, we have a special method called main, method function called main. I'll explain to you why. And then in order for you to throw an output to the screen in Java, we use this syntax of system.out.println, and we write in double quotes whatever we want to go on the screen, each and every instruction and in semicolon. Now let's look at this particular code, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines of code in a little bit more detail. So what is the purpose of curly braces? It's not a new concept to you. You guys have seen it in C# as well. Why do we put curly braces?
To start and stop.
To start and stop what?
To start, it's like the opening of the code, wherever you want the code to really start.
To list the parameters.
There is a word that I'm typing in the chat. Have you ever seen or read
Yep.
this? Okay, code block. Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea of code block is done with the help of opening and closing curly braces. Code blocks define the level. So the outer curly braces are at the level of the class, and the inner curly braces are at the level of the main. Indentation is not required. Even if you do not indent your code, the Java code will still work just fine. It's not like Python. However, it just adds to the readability of the code. That's it. Okay. So your class name is first, which is the name of your program, which has one method called main. Let's not get involved into the word public, static, and void yet, or whatever is in the parentheses. Let's first talk about main. Unlike C#, in Java, the main is written in all lowercase. What is the purpose of main? Even in C#, why your console application need to have a main?
It lets the compiler, your computer, know where the application starts.
Exactly. That's all. Okay. They came up with this name back in 1970s or late 60s, early 70s, in the times of C language, that every program needs an entry point. So this is the entry point into your program. And so if you have same name, it will be easier for a compiler to know how to enter your program. So it is the main through which it enters your program and starts running it. Behind the scene, if you talk about in terms of memory management, there is a special memory called stack. In the stack memory, the method that is currently running is at the top of the stack. So main is running at the top of the stack in memory. When your program ends, the main is thrown off the stack, your program memory is cleared out, and the program ends. So main is running behind the scene in a stack. And there is one instruction in the main. Another commonality that you will see between C# and Java is that every instruction in Java ends in semicolon until and unless it's a code block or a block instruction. It's exactly the same in C#. Okay, now in C# you write system.console.write. Or in short, you can write console.write if you have already written your namespaces at the top. Here in Java, you write system.out.println. Again, this is a different language, right? What does the word system mean? That means I want to write on the current system, which is your box, which is your computer. So there is a special class created by Java called system so that you can talk to your computer. Out is an object declared inside the system, which allows you to throw an output. Similarly, if you want to take an input, you will use system.in. Okay, system.out, system.in, which we will also learn about today, by the way. Println. Print basically allows you to put something onto the console, which is the black window with white text on it. Not necessarily. In Eclipse, the console window is built in right at the bottom of your screen, and it's not like DOS environment. It just looks like the rest of the Eclipse environment. But the idea is it's a text-based output. Okay. Now, there are two kinds of prints in Java. One is called print and one is called println. If you have a single line of output, it doesn't really matter. If you have two lines of output, then print will put both of the outputs on the same line in console, where println pretty much means after you're done throwing the output, create a new line in the console and put the next output on the next line. That's basically the difference between print and println. Okay, are we ready to write our first program in Java? Give me a green check. Still waiting for Jacob Young, Aiden, and Jonathan. Okay. Got it, Jonathan. Okay. Jacob and Aiden. Aiden got it. Okay, Jacob. And Ismail also. Ismail also. Okay, Jacob is in, waiting for Ismail. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. So all you need to do to start creating a project is to click on create a Java project. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be you click on the file menu and you go to new and then you choose Java project. Java project is where all your programs will be. And I usually create one project every week. That way you do not have one massive project, rather one project for every class. Is easier for you to sort things out that way. If you want to name your project after the date, that will sync very well with your syllabus and you will know exactly, or you want to call it Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, whatever you want to do, whatever you want your naming mechanism to be. So if I want to call it Unit 1, I can just call it Unit 1. Then in the JRE environment, if you see a drop-down box, you can see the Java Standard Edition numbers, okay? What is the highest number that you guys see?
19.
19, right? I didn't install the 19, so I have 17 here. So that's fine. Either way, it's okay. If you see a little checkbox at the bottom called create a module, uncheck the checkbox. Uncheck the create module checkbox. As we're not doing module programming, modules were added in Java 9. And the whole reason of adding a module was that if you have several different packages, modules would allow you to put them under one module, and it will be easier for you to distribute them versus having to have so many packages sitting out there loose-ended, okay? Then after you're done with this basic thing, you pick Unit 1, you uncheck Create Module, hit Next. It gives you your folder structure that you will have a source folder under the Unit 1 project and hit Finish. And right at the bottom, it tells you where your bytecode will go, the bin folder. So bin folder where your bytecode goes, and SRC folder is where your source code goes. And you hit Finish. And you have a little Java folder on the left-hand side that you can click to expand. Okay. Once you do this, you need to create your very first program inside the project. So you can right click on the project or source, doesn't matter. You can go to new And then you can create a class. So I right-clicked on the project, or SRC, doesn't matter. You go under new and you click on class. And this dialog box pops up. Okay. This is where we type, for example, I want it to be called first program. You cannot give space in the name of the file. It has to be one word. If you have multiple words, you will uppercase each word's first letter. First letter of each word will be uppercased. You cannot give spaces in the name. It will be a public class. If you look down, there's a whole list of checkboxes. You can check the checkbox that reads public static void main. Check the checkbox. And that way you would not have to write that whole line, public static void main. You wouldn't have to type it. It will type it for you. And then you hit finish. Okay. Now, let me tell you one more thing about this environment. If I want the font sizes to be increased, then I can go to Window menu and I can go to Preferences, just like in RDI, same stuff. In the Window menu, I can go to Preferences. And then under General, I have the appearance and colors and fonts. I can go down to Java and choose my Java editor. And I can edit to increase the font size from, let's say, 10 to 22. Okay, is this better, or do you want it to go higher? Is this readable for everybody, or do you want me to go?
That looks good.
Fine. Okay, cool.
You click on Java and you put what? Sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Java
I'll show you
editor.
again. Window Preferences.
Okay.
Then I went under General Appearance, Colors, and Fonts. I opened Java folder and I clicked on Java Editor Text Font and clicked on Edit button on the right.
Yes, sir.
And then I can choose font name, style, size, whatever.
What did you put it as?
I increase my font size to 22 so that everybody can read from my screen. You can choose whatever you want if you want to increase the font size.
Okay. And then apply.
And then you hit OK first, and then you hit apply and close.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Now, the word public is a modifier, which means everybody from outside could see it. The word static means that when main is running in memory, there could be only one copy of the main per program. So it's static. It will not have multiple copies for several instances running at the same time of first program. Void is the same meaning as you had in C#, means this method is non-value returning. If you call it, it will not return anything back. Main is the name of the method. Does anybody remembers what goes between the parentheses? What do you call them? What goes in the parentheses?
Parameters.
Parameters, okay. What does a square bracket means? Square brackets from C#.
It's an array.
It's an array. Okay. Now in Java, you can put the square brackets either next to the data type or next to the array name. It acts the same way. So you have the liberty in Java to put the square bracket next to the data type or next to the name of the array. Either way, it works fine. So that's what basically these four words mean. Anything that is in this purplish text, like public, class, static, void. What do you think these are?
Question for you. Mine's push my public class to the second one, and then it put another message underneath the public static void. It says auto-generated methods.
Yeah. I deleted those lines. So basically, this is what was left over after I deleted them. I deleted all other lines except for the what you see on my screen.
All right.
Okay. You probably would have had these 2 slashes and some text here, you know, to do something like that, right? Those were comments. It auto-generates those comments.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so anything that is in this purplish text color is these are called keywords or reserved words. That means the words that have special meaning in the language. Words that have special meaning in the language. Okay. Now, what I just wrote here in 2 slashes, that is same as in C#, a single line comment. What I write as a slash and an asterisk, and I hit enter, it automatically puts a closing asterisk slash. This is the multi-line comment. So for example, this is where I can put, let's say January 17th, 2020, 3, and chapter number 1. From 5:30 to 9:30. So I can put multi-line comments as well as single line comment. Anytime on a tab, you see a little asterisk next to the name of your program, it means the file has not yet been saved. You can use the keyboard shortcut Control S. You can click on the blue floppy disk symbol, or you can click the file menu and hit the save. Either way, it will save the changes. In Visual Studio, when you're typing in console, you type something and you put a little dot and it gives you a drop-down box with some options. What do you call that in Visual Studio? Where it helps you code, pretty much.
The IntelliSense?
Mm-hmm. The IntelliSense. Something very similar to IntelliSense is also part of Eclipse environment. So as soon as I type system and I put a period, okay, it gives me a little drop down. I can either double click on the out, or I can type O and then double click on it, or I could hit enter, whatever, and hit period again. And then I can type R, W, and then it gives me all the W methods. Okay. Or I can use P. I can go back and replace the W with a P, and it gives me all the P methods. I'm interested in print, parentheses, double quotes, name, and then save changes. Notice that the instruction ended in semicolon. So your semicolon is called, terminator, right? Same stuff that you would call. in C#. It terminates the instruction. I just want to make sure that these people are not here. I'm going to mark them absent now. So we don't have JC Pope. And we do not have Amruta Zor. Okay. So what is the semicolon called?
The Terminator.
Exactly. No, not this one, right?
Good movie though.
Maybe this one, different one. I don't know. Terminate. That was probably from 80s.
Yeah, it was probably like 84 or something, or
Yeah.
89.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's save the changes. What happens when you save the changes? As soon as you save the changes in Eclipse, it automatically creates the bytecode. And what is the file extension of the bytecode? The source code's file extension is .java. You can see that in the Package Explorer. What is the file extension of bytecode?
The class.
.class. Very good. Okay. Now, if you are interested in seeing the bytecode as well as the source code, Package Explorer doesn't show you that, but the Navigator shows you that. To switch to Navigator view, you can click the window menu and you can go to Show View, and then you can click on Navigator, which is deprecated, not used, however, is still supported, so that you could see some of the things. Because Navigator shows you everything in folder structure, and Package Explorer shows you everything like in Java packages. So when you go to Window Menu, Show View, Navigator, and it will open the Navigator at the bottom of your screen. If it does that, you can always drag the tab and drop it next to Package Explorer, and I'm going to be next to Package Explorer. Then if you open the Unit 1 there, you will find two folders, bin and SRC. And
I got
notice
it.
in the bin folder, you have the .class version, and in the source, you have the .java version. Yes, Desmond.
I got a red X going on. I don't know if I missed something.
On which line? On line 10?
Right under public static. When I write the system out print.
On this line? Line 10? Is this where
Yes,
you have
sir.
red X?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you make sure that the system's S is uppercase?
Did.
Did. Okay. So when you hover over the error, what does it tell you?
Oh, never mind. I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So this is where you can see the source code and the bytecode. Anyway, we'll be staying in Package Explorer. I just wanted to show you where you can go to see that. Okay. Now, if you click on the green circle with a play button icon on the toolbar, it will run the program and will show you the output in the console. Again, if you want your console text to be larger in size, you got to repeat the same process by going to Window Menu, going to Preferences, and then you will be increasing the size of your console output from here. I think it's under Terminal, if I'm not wrong. No, it's not the terminal. Oops. Maybe it's under basic. No. I always forget the console one. Maybe, oh, it's under deep debug. Here we go. Okay. Everybody got this? Now, let me copy this line and paste it underneath that. And I will type here, course. I'm going to call this one Java programming. And then we will hit save. And we will run it again. And this is what I was talking about earlier, that when you have print, it basically puts all outputs on the same line. And who remembers how to push course Java programming to the new line?
LN after print.
After print, you put LN, okay? Which is for the new line, and enter, and I'm going to push them on 2 different lines. If there is another line after line 11, then you would have to change the line 11 to the print as well. Print to the print LN as well.
I'm sorry, how did you do that one more time?
I just put the LN next to the print. And then I reran it.
Okay, thank you.
Let's do one more line. Let me first change the line number 2 to a print LN before I modify line number 3. And run it, just so that you guys can see it multiple times. Okay, everybody followed this? Okay. Now let's create a new class. So we will right click on unit 1 and create a new class. We'll call this one second program. Public static void main should be checked so that we don't have to type it, and click finish. This is the comment I deleted before, and this is the comment I'm deleting again. Okay.
What are we calling it?
I called it second program.
Are we putting that in the unit where it says unit source?
Yeah, same unit. You can have as many programs as possible in a project, in the same project. So you can, unlike Visual Studio, where you can only have one main per project. Here you can have several mains per project because each one of them is running independently. Okay. So what do I type if I want to start displaying an output?
System.out,
System.out.println.
print.
I'll use println.
And mine didn't print the public static.
Say that again.
Mine didn't bring up the public static.
Because you did not check the public static void checkbox.
Okay.
So you may have to now manually type it.
Okay.
Okay. So on that screen, if you check that checkbox, let me show you where the checkbox is again. When you are creating the class, look at the bottom. There are three
Yeah.
checkboxes. One
Yeah,
of the
I did check it.
checkbox. Yeah.
You're right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mhm. Okay. Gateway Technical College. Save the changes and run it. You'll see just one line of text on the output, Gateway Technical College. If I give 2 spaces between gateway and technical as opposed to 1, do you think both spaces will show up in the console or only one?
Both.
Both. See, technical is a little bit farther from gateway than college is from technical. Okay, I got rid of that 1 space. Now I will delete the spaces between all 3 of the words and make it look like one word, Gateway Technical College. And now I want to give out spacing between them using special characters called escape sequence characters. Escape sequence characters, just like C# in Java, also start with a backslash. To give a tab space, you use \T. \T. And now go ahead and run this after you save the changes, and you will see that they are a tab space away. I wonder why there's only one tab space for tech. There's only one space for technical. That's strange. Let's see. Strange. Why it's doing only one tab. It's doing more for college.
I think there has to be a space between the first parenthesis and the G in gateway.
Like this.
No, at the start of it, before
Oh, before the, like here in the double
before
quotes?
the G.
Yeah, that does it.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Also, if I want them to be on separate lines, I can use /n, and each /n will push them to a new line. And /n is a new line character. So gateway, technical, and college will be on separate lines. So that's a escape sequence character. /n pretty much is the idea that has been going around since the typewriter times, where /n is basically line feed and carriage return. It's a combination of both of those operations. Where in the typewriters, you used to feed a line and then you used to have a carriage return. /n does both. There are more escape sequence characters, such as system.out.println, Sam said. Now, whatever Sam said, I want that to be in double quotes. If I try to use double quotes within double quotes, Java doesn't like that. It just gives me a red line. So in order for me to put double quotes echoing on the screen, each of the echoing double quotes, I will precede them with a slash. So now it knows that this double quote and this double quote are the ones that will go on the screen as double quotes. Whereas the surrounding two double quotes are only to show that it is a string. So within the slash double quotes, the two of them, I will write, oops, Sam said, I am going home. Okay, so now you run it and you will see that Sam said, I'm going home appears inside the double quotes. Okay. Similarly, if I replace, let me copy this and paste it right below. Exactly the same sentence. I will replace the double quotes with single quotes on both sides and run it. Then you will see that the single quotes appear on both sides as opposed to double quotes. Okay. Does anybody has any questions so far? So far, so good. Everybody's following along okay? Okay. Now, let's go back to your book. And I think I went a little bit ahead than what your book, where your book is, but that's okay. And your book basically explains you the different components of that one line that we wrote. The system is a class, and the periods are operators, which are the separators between classes and objects and methods. Out is a property of the system class. Println is a method. Parentheses are always required for method names. And whatever you see in double quotes is the argument or the parameter of the method. Semicolon is what ends the Java instruction. So this is just the explanation of that idea. These are the list of the Java keywords that are on page number 13, which is figure 1-6. From this list, how many keywords have you seen so far?
Oh, 5.
You've seen 5. Okay, which 5 keywords did you see so far?
Public, class, static, void.
And
Where's that?
Int, if, else.
no. In the program that we have written so far.
Oh, that we're just using.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Main is not a keyword. Main is the
Right.
name of the method. Okay. That's why if you look here, the main is not of the same color as void, static, or so we have seen 4 keywords: public, class, static, and void.
Oh, private, we didn't see it. Okay.
Yeah, we did not see yet. Okay.
All right.
Okay. How many operators have we seen so far?
String, I think.
how many operators have we seen so far in this one program, which is second program.java? Unique operators, to be specific, unique operators. We have seen 5 operators. Operator is any symbol that has a special meaning in a language. One is the pair of curly braces. Another one is a pair of parentheses. The third one is the pair of square brackets. These are 3 operators. Fourth operator is a semicolon. Fifth operator is a period. Okay. Okay, after the reserved words or keywords, the author tries to explain to you when you are giving your class a name, you can use a single word name, a multi-word name, provided each letter of each word's first letter is uppercase. You could shorten certain words, but no spaces are allowed. Or you can give a name followed by a number. However, these are the names which are legal but not preferred. Means writing 2 words, but everything is lowercase, but the first word's first letter, or using underscores, or using all uppercase or all lowercase names. Similarly, these names are illegal, giving a space in the name, or using a keyword as the class name, or using a class name that starts with a number, or using a special symbol inside the name. These are illegal, okay? Then the author goes about explaining to you what I just explained to you earlier, okay? Each and every component of the program, okay? Then she explains the method main, and she talks about the comments, which we talked about already, and then she talks about indentations. White spaces make no difference in Java. I mean, like, there are places where you should put at least 1 between the items that you want to separate, but other than that, it doesn't really matter. So the indentation styles in this example is a little bit different than the indentation style that we used, okay? No, we use the same style, sorry. We use the same style where we do not have the opening braces on a new line, and it is called a K and R style, and it's named after these 2 people.
Yeah.
And the other style in which, it's the curly braces are aligned and each occupies its own line is the Allman style, which is this style, where curly brace is on its own line, the Allman style. Most IDEs use the KNR style versus Allman style, but it's also okay for you to use the Allman style. Then it talks about saving Java file and running it and seeing the output and stuff like that. Okay, that's basically okay. Since we are using an IDE called Eclipse, it does everything for us. But if you are sitting on a Unix machine, or if you're sitting on a console application or a console environment, then this is how you will compile a Java program. You will write Java C command space the name of the Java file .java. This is how you'll compile it. And then if your Java file is not on the same class path as your compilation executable file, jar file, then you will write the whole path where it's located. Okay. And then when you are done compiling it and it doesn't give you any error, then you will run it using another command. So if it has any error in the console, it will just tell you by putting a little caret symbol that you are missing semicolon and there's only one error found. And then you go and fix it, and then you recompile it. Sometimes if you have made multiple errors, then I'm going to just point out everywhere you have an error, just like that. Okay. And then you go about running it. And in order for you to run it, you just put Java space the name of the Java bytecode. Again, this is for console people, not for us. But just so that you know. Okay. Will these two lines come on the console in two separate lines, or will they come on the same line?
Separate lines,
Separate lines. And why would you say that?
the ln and
The ln, exactly. Okay. Now, let's move on to logical errors. What are logical errors? Logical errors are those kind of errors which are not technically errors that could be caught by the system, but are the errors in the programmer's logic. For example, if the programmer misspelled a word, the compiler won't catch it. It will just come out to be like first Java application. That's called a logical error. But if you make a syntactical error, then it's a syntax error. But if you make an error such that during runtime the program fails, such as if you try to divide by 0, then that would be a runtime error. Okay. Then we learn about the Java comments, the single line comment, the multi-line comment, which is called the block comments. Also, there are special kind of comments in Java called Java doc. The Java doc comments are written like this, that you write a backslash and you use 2 asterisks as opposed to a single asterisk, and it comes in blue color. Java doc comments are used by Java developers to write comments which could later on be converted into the code documentation, which could then be translated into an actual web page. It's a very neat tool that Java doc comments could actually become the help site for the entire project. And when you have your Java doc comments in each of your programs in a project, all you need to do is run all of your files on Java doc, and it creates a website with all the pages linked together nicely, where each page is a link to the actual class with everything that you wrote in the Java doc being translated to the comments. So that's a Java doc commenting style, and shows you all 3 commenting style on this page. Okay. Now, it is also possible for you to create a graphical user interface output. And in this book, author uses the older Java environment, which is called the Java Swing environment. Okay. Java actually had 3 separate GUI environments. When Java was initially launched, the environment was called AWT, Abstract Window Toolkit, extremely heavy on the operating system environment. So by 1997, Java decided to go away from AWT into another environment called Java Swing. But AWT was not completely discarded because Swing was developed on top of AWT. So all the classes in Swing had their parent classes in AWT. So how can you differentiate between the two? The AWT packages start with Java .awt. Swing packages start with Java X, showing you that this is an extension to Java. Then 7-8 years ago, Java created another environment which was much better than Swing, and it's called Java FX. So all the Java FX packages start with Java FX. And Java FX is a brand new architecture. It is not built on top of the Swing. So you do not need to have Swing or AWT available to you in order for you to have a Java FX application. So Java FX, we will talk about towards the end of this course, but Java X, which is a Swing, this package has a special class called JOptionPane. This class allows you to create a dialog box that would show up on the screen, and it does that with the help of a method called show message dialog. Let's put this to practice. Let's start a brand new class, which we will call third program, and we will check the public static void main checkbox. The class name is J option pane. Notice how each letter is uppercased. Each word's first letter is uppercased. And this uppercase J in the beginning means that it is a swing class. All the swing classes start with an uppercase J. They may have their AWT counterparts, which do not start with an uppercase J. So all the swing classes are starting with uppercase J, okay? Now, when you put a period, it automatically recognizes that this is one of the built-in classes. So it gives you a IntelliSense for that. And we will type show M, and it automatically goes to the message dialog, which I can then double click or enter. Okay. The first parameter is null. That means this message dialog is not associated with any window. It is on its own. And in the second placeholder, I can write my message. What did you all notice when I hit enter, or when you hit enter on your screens? Besides the line getting completed.
The import at the top.
Exactly. It automatically wrote the import for you. And the reason you did not need an import in your prior examples was because the system class, you know, coming from C#, you need to understand this, because in C# you have a bunch of using namespaces at the top, right? But here you don't, because Java programs inherently automatically understand all the classes that come from java.lang, which is Java language package. If a class is inside the language package, you do not need to import the package. That's why if we can use system, we can use string, those are classes, and you do not need to import anything. By the way, how do I know that these are classes?
Because the periods represent methods or functions in the class themselves.
Well, what about string? You know, string doesn't have any of that representation, but I can tell right away that string is a class.
Oh, it's uppercase.
Very good. So in Java, any word that has the first letter uppercase, it automatically tells you it has to be a class. Okay? And anything which is all lowercase, if it's a one word and all lowercase, or if it is multiple words, but the first word is all lowercase, it means it has to be a method name. Okay? Now notice this. This is 3 words, right? But the first word is all lowercase, and all other words have the first letter uppercase. This is the camel casing, right? So the method names follow the camel casing style, but the class names don't follow the camel casing style. Okay. And so J option pane is not part of java.lang package. It is part of javax.swing package. That is why we needed to import the package. So now go ahead and run this, and it will show you this dialog box. Everybody with me so far? Is it making sense to you guys, whatever we are doing?
Are we going to be touching up on this Java X stuff in our GUI unit?
You know, again, we'll see, you know. I am planning on going into Java FX versus Java Swing. So that's why I'm kind of thinking of not touching on swing, rather going directly into FX. But, you know, there may be places before we go to chapter 14, we may probably see some swing stuff. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So now let me go back to our book, and that's what it explains right here. And then in order for you to find help about Java, if you ever want to learn anything about Java, the simplest thing for you to do is open up a web browser and maybe like go to, let's say, google.com and type Java API. Java API and hit enter. You will see a bunch of links here, and there are different documentation APIs for Java, whichever Java version's API you want, because every version you will have more classes than the previous version, because every version is bigger in size than the previous version. You simply click on whichever version you want, and you click on it, and it takes you to that version's API. So if I want to go, let's say, Java 7 API, you know, this is a good example of what comes out of a Java doc comment. It just produced this whole website for you with all your packages in the top left corner, all the classes in the bottom area, and their description right in the middle. Okay. So if I want to go to Java API 19, here it's loading the Java API 19 for me. Okay. So now here I can see the whole Java API. I could use, I mean, at the module level, or I could use the Java Standard Edition level, or I could use the JDK level. So all of these are different variation or other modules available to me. Okay. And then I can click on any of the modules, and it just takes me inside the modules, and I can start looking at all the files inside. So that's the main difference between Java 7 versus the others. In the other versions after 7, in fact, from 9 onwards, instead of giving you a API like this, they're broken it down into modules. I really like this approach though. You know, I mean, like, for example, here, if I go down to a package called java.lang, in the java.lang, I can see all the classes in the lang package. I could see down below that there's a string class. I could see down below that there's a system class. I click on the string class and it starts giving me all the details. It starts giving me all the examples. So, and then I can click on any one of the methods. It takes me down to that method's description. So it just is a nice way for you to look at some help. Oh, there it is. Okay. And then here it talks about the punctuations, or so we have total of 4 kinds of brackets. The 4th kind of bracket you will see when we hit chapter number 12. That's when you will see this 4th brackets, which is called the angle brackets. It's also called the diamond or a chevron bracket, but mostly it's called the angle brackets, which is generally used in generics in Java. Okay, any questions about chapter 1? Okay, then let's take a break here till 8 o'clock. And then when we come back at 8 o'clock is when we will work with chapter 2. Welcome back, everybody.
How was your Christmas, man?
The winter break was good. How about you?
spend too much money. That's what I did.
Mine was mostly good.
I mean, like I traveled to meet my brother in Canada, and it was fun. It was cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Did you spend a lot of money, or you were made to spend a lot of money?
I got 4 kids, man. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
that's a lot. Yeah, that's and all of them was like my 2 oldest is 18 and 14 and 15. So I have the 3 oldest. So that in itself was like, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's yeah, I know.
Because now they want like my second oldest boy, he likes Jordan, so he wanted this. I was like, who spent $370 in shoes, man? I'm not spending. I go, I'll give you $300, and then you do whatever you want with it. But I'm not gonna spend that on a shoe.
Yep. Well, that's how they are.
Yeah, I did. Because his birthday is a week before Christmas, and then Christmas, and then so he wanted, I guess I could see spending it on a console. Like I would buy him an Xbox Series X if he wanted one, but then because I know that'll last for a long time, So in that case, I'll spend that money. But on a shoe, hell no.
When they're in a growing age, then they will run out of that size soon. But when you're a grown up, and you're not growing anymore, then you can buy a shoe that will last you longer.
Yeah, my 14-year-old is 6 foot 205 pounds and just muscles and just this beast, and he doesn't even want to play football. He wants to play basketball. Like, oh, you're gonna be this big 14-year-old kid that could just dominate, and you want to play basketball. I don't get it.
Wow. So, well, probably, you still have room for him, growth. So probably he will, the good thing is that when the older kid outgrows, then the ones right behind them can wear it.
This is true. The one behind him is 7, so he's got a lot of years to catch up.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so let's move on to chapter number 2. And that is about using data. So was first chapter pretty simple? Everybody understood that? Okay. Just want to make sure. Now we are tapping into chapter number 2, which talks about variables. It talks about constants. It talks about data types. It talks about input and output and arithmetic operations and type conversion. Those are the main topics. Again, simple stuff, not complicated stuff. You probably have seen this kind of stuff in C#. So when you are writing your system.out.println statement, so far we have put everything in double quotes because it's a string. But it is also possible for you to put a literal value like 459 and a number, right? So every time an application will run, it'll throw out 459. So this is called a numeric constant. What you put in double quotes is called a literal constant versus a numeric constant. Unnamed constants can also be used. So when you are naming your values, you're better off putting them in variables, and variables must have a data type. These are the Java primitive data types. What is a primitive data type? A primitive data type is a data type that is not a class. Okay. If it's a class, it is called a reference type. You can see that at the bottom of my screen right here. Reference type is if the data type is a class. And primitive type is if it's not a class. That's why if you notice, all of these data types are in lowercase. They're not classes. They don't have methods. They don't have anything else. They're single value storage places. A byte can store a value only in 1 byte. So it is limited to -128 to +127. Short is 2 bytes long. Integer is 4 bytes long. Long is 8 bytes long. Float is 8 bytes long. I mean, like they're pretty limited in terms of storage, and they have a range of values that you can store in them. So a variable declaration is where you declare your variable with an appropriate data type. And if you want to assign it some initial value, you can do so too. If you do not assign any value to your variable, it defaults to the data types value. For example, all the number data types in Java, they default to 0. All the Boolean defaults to false. Character defaults to null pointer. And string defaults to null. Okay, so those are basically the defaults for the data types. Okay, now here is an example. Declaring a data type, declaring a variable my age of the data type integer and giving it a value of 25. So 25 becomes its initial value. Later on in the program, if you want to change the value, all you need to do is rewrite the variable equals to and choose a different value. When you choose a different value, the previous value is gone. So the first line that you see right at the top, it's called initialization. Then after that, you can just simply have assignments, which is done with the help of an assignment operator, which is just the equal sign. Okay. You can also declare multiple variables of the same data type on the same line by simply writing the data type, variable equals to initial value, comma, another variable equals to initial value, and so on and so forth. If you do not want to initialize them with any value, you only want to list them, you can also do that. You can say integer, height, comma, weight, semicolon. You can also do that. No big deal. Okay. Declaring a named constant. Okay. Before I get to that, let me go back to Eclipse and let's create a new class. And we'll call this one variable example 1 with a public static void main. Variable example 1. That's the name I wrote. I checked the public static void main box, and here I have. Okay, so I will be declaring a variable of type integer, call score, and I will be putting in a value here. 56. Okay. So that's how you declare. Character. String. Oops. So I declared variables of several different data types, and string is actually a class. So name is not technically a variable. It's an object. But in Java, you can treat string like primitive type, but behind the scene is not really a primitive type. If I want to display the value of score, I can just simply say this is score and run it, and it will display the output 56. If I change the value to a different value, let's say 69, save the changes and rerun it, it will now show the value 69. So whatever is the value of the variable, it'll just show that value. I have set it to 69, but right before the display, I want to change it to 60. And right after displaying, I want to change it to 90. What value do you think will be displayed? $60 or 69 or 90?
60.
It will display 60, right? Okay, because 60 will overwrite 69 and 90 is the assignment after the display. So that's why nobody will ever see 90. Now, when you're displaying an output, you can just display variables. But generally speaking, you do not display your outputs like that with just values. What else do you contribute to the line where you're displaying a value? What else do you put on the same line where you're displaying the value?
Would you identify what the value is?
Exactly. So you need to have some kind of a label, some kind of a text identifying what is that value. So in Java, we follow the same syntax that you have in C#. You put in double quotes right before you display the value, and then you put the two things together with the help of the concatenation operator. Do you guys remember the concatenation operator from C#?
Plus.
Plus, right, exactly. So
I'm getting a red X, but I don't know what I.
check your syntax to see if it is complete. Hover over the error message and I'll tell you what you're missing. So first complete the line and then your X will disappear.
Okay.
So now when I run this, it will now show some text with the value. How many unique operators do we see in this one example? Okay. Ethan says 6, Jack says 9. 9, what are those 9 operators, Jack?
The equals score, or the equals one on line 5, the equal on 6, the equal on 7.
Oh,
Equal
those
on
are
8.
those are
Oh.
considered to be one operator
Oh,
because I said unique operators.
unique operators. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awkward. There's unique operators, 2.
More than 2.
Oh, wait. Okay, I see.
So you have got the curly braces. You've got the parentheses. You have got the square brackets. You have got the plus, the period, the semicolon. Any others? You've got the equals to. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What else? Yep, we got the single quotes, right? And we got the double quotes. So all of these are considered to be different operators. Okay, how many keywords, unique keywords, can you identify in this example?
Is it 9?
Okay, so we have public class 2, static 3, void 4, integer 5, character 6, boolean 7, false 8, and double 9. Okay. Now, likewise, we will display the other variables as well. So we've got score sex name. We will now going to display past. And we will display past. I'm going to have GPA. I'm going to display GPA. And I can always move this up just like that. It's movable.
How did you move the lines one more time?
There is a little gray bar that you can use to move up and down.
Ah, gotcha.
Okay, so did everybody get this working? Okay, so Jack, Ethan, Nathan, Carter, and Miguel. You guys got it. So I believe Carter may be working on this, or okay. Which line, Carter? I mean, like, is there any particular line that you have an error? Okay, okay. Okay, cool, awesome. Now let's go back to the book, which talks about constants. Constants are those values that cannot change. Yeah, Jonathan, it's totally up to you if you want to use some kind of identifier for readability's sake. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it doesn't complain as long as you're following the convention. So for constants, the convention is that they're all uppercase. It's for readability purpose, that as soon as you look at it, you know that it's a constant. But the key word that is required for it to be treated as a constant is final, which is different from C#. So if I want to declare a constant, I will use the word final, and that value cannot change. So final string college underscore name equals to Gateway Technical College. The constants are displayed exactly the same way as variables are, except for that their naming convention is different. Oops. So we use the word final when we declare a constant. We do not use the word final when we declare the variable. Okay, is everybody caught up? Okay, so we will now move on to our next example here. So we will create our next class. We'll call this one variable example number 2 with a public static void main. Let's go back to the book again. And as you can see at the bottom of this page, that the author has used a formula. Double pay amount equals to hours worked times standard pay rate minus number of dependents times deduction. But just by looking at this formula, we learn about 3 things. Number 1, that you can use multiple operators on the same line. Number 2, you could visually see which one of the many components are constants and which are variables, right? So you can see the difference between variables and constants here. And then the third thing that you notice over here is that you can declare a variable and right away do all the calculations, provided all the other variables on the right-hand side or the constants are already declared and they do have a value already. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Concatenating strings to variables and constants. We already learned that, how you concatenate, so we already covered that stuff. Okay, then the book goes about talking about the different integer types. There are 4 different integer types. We have a byte, which is the range of -128 to +127, size is 1. And this table nicely shows you all other types. One of the reasons you need to know these types is because if you are storing a value that is less than 32,000 and will never be passing -32,000, you are better off using short than an int because you're occupying more space for no reason. So that's why it is important to know the data types. If you're storing a long value, you must use an L at the end of the value so that it knows that it's a long value. Okay. Okay, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Let's move on to the next page. We already looked at Boolean. Okay. One more thing to look at here in this example is that in a Boolean variable, you can actually do a comparison right there and then. So if you're comparing 2 values, if 6 is greater than 5, which it is, then is 6 bigger will be true. But is 7 smaller or equal? Then this will be false because 7 is not smaller, neither it's equal to 4. So it can actually have a values like that. Also, you can do comparison of variables with values like are hours greater than 40? If the hours are greater than 40, then the is over time pay will be true. Otherwise, it'll be false. Similarly, you can compare a variable with a constant, or you could compare 2 variables, and true or false will be stored inside the Boolean variables. Then the book talks about the floating point and the double. The float size is 4. This is the range. Double size is 8 bytes, and this is the range. Then comes the character data type, which we also looked at in our example where we stored sex equals to F. So here it stores middle initial, grade in chemistry, A star. All of these could be a single character values. Similarly, the author tries to also tell you that there is a difference between 9 in single quotes and 9 without a single quote. 9 without a single quote is an integer, and 9 with a single quote is a character. 9 with a double quotes in a double quotes is a string, and 9.0 is a double. So the language does differentiates between how you represent a value. Okay. Then the author gives you an ASCII table. Everything that you type on your keyboard has an ASCII representation behind the scene. So when you're typing in uppercase A, the ASCII representation is 65. And when you type a lowercase a, the ASCII representation is 97. And that's how the computers can differentiate between uppercase and lowercase letters. And that's how your password can be case sensitive, because it looks for exact same ASCII values, where your username is not case sensitive. So these are the ASCII values. We also looked at /n's and /t's. So these are called escape sequence characters. Okay, now let me move on to how to accept an input from user. Okay, in order for you to accept an input from user, you have to use a special built-in class called scanner. Scanner, you will declare an object of scanner type equals to new scanner. And to the parentheses of scanner, you will say, take an input from the keyboard, system.in. So from the input device of the system, that's where your keyboard will come, your input will come from. What you see on the right-hand side, new scanner, you will learn about what that syntax means in 2 weeks. When we learn chapter 4, that's where you will learn about. For now, just let's keep it simple. This is what you will write anytime you need to accept an input. So you're basically creating an object of scanner type to receive an input from the keyboard. That's all you're doing here. Scanner object equals to new scanner, and then you say the source of input. Now, after you declare your scanner object, you now have a choice of accepting different kinds of inputs. If you want a double value, you will call the next double. So you will say input device dot next double. If you're accepting an integer, you can say input device dot next int. Next line is to accept a multi-word string, and next is to only get a single word string. Next short, one short value, byte is for byte value, float is for float value, long is for long value. Okay, so this is how you will use it. Have a look at this example. We have a variable name and we have a variable age. We declared a scanner object called input device. We asked the user, please enter your name. And then we say input device, which is the scanner object dot next line. So that will grab the value from the user. So if the user typed in Jim, then the Jim will be the value in the name. Then we ask the user, please enter your age. Now, since age is of type integer, we will say input device dot next int. So the age will now hold the value, whatever the user enters. Then we are displaying your name is Jim and your age is 19 years old. So that's how you will accept an input from user and display it. So now let's practice that stuff. So going back to our variable example number 2. So anytime I need to accept an input, I need to create an object of which class?
Scanner.
Scanner, okay? I can call my object whatever. I don't have to call it what the book called it. I could just simply call it in. I could call it input. I could call it user input. I mean, like whatever, naming convention. As long as I'm following the naming convention, the naming rules, I could just call it whatever. New scanner. Okay. Now, what do I write inside the parentheses? System.in. Okay. Now, when I say, after writing this, I save the changes, still, I have an error on the line. Okay. And I'll show you how to fix the error. And I'll tell you why you have an error. But before I do that, I will ask you a question. If you're using a Java built-in class and you simply use it and it doesn't errors out, what does that mean? The class belongs to which package?
Scanner package.
Java.lang.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, java.lang package. If you are using a Java built-in class and it gives you a red line on it, and you know that there is a class by that name, that means you're missing a package. Now, it is hard for you to figure out all 600-700 classes to which packages they belong. So this is the easiest way to figure out. This is one way. You hover over the class name and notice the very first fix. It is telling you to import the package called java.util. Okay, so when you click on java.util package, it writes the import statement for you and the error disappears. Okay, now let's declare some variables. Integer score equals to 0 and string full name equals to nothing. So write a program to accept student name and score from user. So that's why we made all these arrangements, right? We did at the top. Whenever you accept an input from user, as you also saw in the example that the author discussed, you always need to write some kind of a message before you accept an input, like, please enter your name. Then you take an input. You follow the same syntax anytime you take an input. System.out, .print, not println. Why do you think I should do print versus println?
It's so that the user enters it on the same line.
Very good. Okay. Otherwise, the blinking cursor will be on the next line versus the same line. Okay. Now I'm accepting the user's name. Full name equals to user input dot. Which method do I use for accepting multi-word input? We use next line. Which one do we use? Next line. Please enter your score. That will be next int system dot out dot println student name missed the T's. So this time, after you're done, when you run the example, you will see in the console that will give you a message, please enter your name, and it waits for you to put an input. So you simply click on that line and you may start putting in some text. And when you press enter, it will give you the next. It's exactly, probably you guys did the console application in C# too, right? in the Intro to Programming and Database class? Yes? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we
It's
did.
this, it's the same stuff. You know, you have something to write and then you write next to it and then you press enter and then it says, please enter your score. Even though the cursor is blinking on the left, you can still type and it's going to move your input on the right hand side. Don't worry about that. Just like that. And then you hit enter and it just displays everything back to you.
Hi there. I'm calling you from.
Okay, is everybody done with this?
Yep.
Okay. Now, lines 14 and 15 are two different system.out instructions. I want to combine them into one system.out instruction, but my output should still be the same. How can I do that? Same output, but with one system out instruction. Yep. Ismail, the only difference is the slash is the other slash, the backslash. Okay. So first of all, I need to put a plus as a concatenation. Then I use a /n. Okay. And the /n could be followed by student score. And then concatenate that with score. And then I can just simply comment out this line just so that it's there for you to see. And it'll be the same output. Because of the /n, it just produces it onto two separate lines. Okay. Caught up, everybody? So far, so good? Okay. Now, let's move on to the next topic here, which is the operators.
Can I see something on the last part of the code?
Yes.
Getting a squiggly.
On my line 14, whatever line number it is for you,
Yes.
or the line after.
The last line, the 14, yes.
Okay. Did you use pluses? 3 of them in between?
1, 2. That's what it is, right?
And do you have
Yeah,
the
it went away.
say it again?
It went away. I had 1 plus missing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm only getting enter your name though.
Yeah, so you got to enter somebody's name.
Anybody's name?
Yeah, anyone's name. Right. Just like, I run it and I put somebody's name and I hit enter, and then I put somebody's score, and then I hit enter, and it displays both information back to me. It's
Okay,
just like
I got
a simple console application you would have done in C#. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay. So I will come back to JOption pane class to accept GUI input in a short while. Let me first of all get to the operators, which is section 2.8. Arithmetic operators. Arithmetic operators in C# and Java are exactly the same. So we got the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulus. What is modulus used for? Anybody remembers?
Doesn't it give you the remainder?
Exactly. It gives you the remainder after the division. So if you do 45 divided by 2, it gives you the quotient of 22. But if you do 45% 2 or modulus 2, then it gives you the remainder of 1, that there's 1 remaining after the division took place. So that's what that operator does. Associativity and precedence. What does that mean? That means if on the same line you have multiplication, division, and modulus, it will go from left to right. They're all at the same level. Addition and subtraction are also at the same level. So if you have 3 plus 4 minus 5, it'll just do 3 plus 4 and will then subtract 5 from it. However, if you have a mix of that, if you have 3 plus 4 multiplied by 5, then 4 and 5 will be multiplied first, and then the addition will take place. So the same PEMDAS rule that you would learn in any math class apply in programming. Okay, do you guys know those rules, the PEMDAS rules?
Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, add, subtract.
Exactly, same rules. So here, 2 plus 3 times 4. So the multiplication will take place first, which is 12 plus 2, 14 will be the answer, not the 20. But if you want the 20 to be the answer, then you got to do the addition first. You got to put addition in parentheses, and then parentheses will take precedence over multiplication. So the parentheses will be done first. So that's basically what this does. Okay. Here is an example of arithmetics where you could use multiple operators on same line. It could be a combination of variables and constants. You could do it all in the same line, do complicated, or break it down into several different lines. It's totally up to you, however you want to do it. Let me see here. Okay. We will come to, let me do the type conversion also at the same time that I'm talking about this stuff. So type conversion pretty much talks about converting from one data type to another data type. The good thing about scanner is in scanner, things are automatically converted to a special type because you're using next line for string, next in for integer, next double for double, and so forth. However, when you are using the J option pane input dialog box, it always brings in a string. That's a problem. It always brings in a string. So if you're accepting somebody's name, well and good. You can just simply store that. So you put in the name and you hit OK, and the name goes in the object, and then you can display the object. However, when you're accepting a number, then it's a problem. So what you got to do then, you got to do some conversion. And if you remember in C#, you had convert dot, and then you would call a function. Here, things are a little bit different. Here, what Java developers did is they created wrapper classes. What kind of classes? Wrapper classes. Wrapper. What are these wrapper classes? The wrapper classes is such that for every primitive type, they have a reference type, which can help it go back and forth for conversion purposes. So if for int, the wrapper class is integer, spelled out like this. So for double with a lowercase d, we have a wrapper class called double with an uppercase d. So the uppercase D double class has a built-in function called parse double that if you give it a string value, it will convert that into a double value. Similarly, the integer class, as you can see right here at the bottom, integer has a parse int method that if you give it a string, it will convert it for you in the integer equivalent value. Do you guys follow that?
It's like the classes are like carrying the input or like whatever the string is into like that container.
Yeah, it's pretty much, yeah, exactly. So that's what it is doing. It is just simply taking a value of string type and converting it into a primitive type and returning that value to be assigned to a variable. That's what these wrapper classes are doing right here. So if I go back to my Eclipse environment and create a new class called variable example number 3 and with a public static void main, and instead of taking the scanner route, if I take a J option pane route and say, okay, integer score equals to J option pane dot show input dialog. Enter a score. Now, despite the fact J option pane is imported, the line still gives me an error because the value that is coming from the right-hand side is a string, and the value that is on the left-hand side is an integer. So that causes a problem, right? So in order to fix the problem, I will take help from wrapper classes. So I will call the integer dot, the integer wrapper class, oops. Integer dot parse int to take the string value so it will take the string value that is coming from here, we'll give it over to the parse int method, which will then convert it to an int. So from string to integer to an int. Okay, did everybody follow this? Just wanted to give everybody enough time to comprehend, code and comprehend. Okay, so now with that done, I now have a value sitting inside the score, which is of type integer. Now I can simply call J option pane dot show message dialog, and I can simply display your score and then display the score. So now when I run this example, it'll first of all give me a dialog box like this one, in which I will enter a score. And upon clicking OK, it will then give me another dialog box where it will display the score. So I'm using the J option pane class, which is a built-in swing class. I'm using its two separate methods. One of them is show input dialog, which accepts a value. Then I convert it to an integer type, store it in a variable. Then I use the show message dialog method to display the value back. Okay. Everybody got this? So now let me change the variable score to score1. And you will notice right away, line 6 gives me an error, so I'm going to change that to score1 as well, right? Now let me copy this, line number 5, and paste it on line number 6 and change the variable name to score2, because notice right away it tells me that you cannot have the two same variable names declared on two separate lines. So score2 and enter score1, enter score2. Integer total equals to score1 plus score2. Total score, oops. Enter score, enter another score, and here's the total score. Okay, everybody with me on this one? Everybody get to run this, test this? Okay. There is one more thing that you can do is that if you have an example and you want to use some of that code in the next example with some changes, instead of reinventing the wheel, you can just simply go to File menu and hit Save As. Then you can give it a different name. For example, I want to call this one variable example 4. So I changed the 3 to a 4. So I went to the File menu and I hit Save As. And now I'm changing it to variable example number 4. Then I'm hitting OK. Then you notice that line number 3 errors out because my file name and my class names don't match. So I hover over and I can now choose rename. Or I could just simply delete 3 and type 4. I have both options, but I'm talking about when the names are drastically different. Instead of having to retype the whole name, you can just hover over the old name and choose rename option, and it just renames it for you. Why bother yourself, right? When you can do it with convenience. Now, what I want to do is I want to be able to accept different scores, but of type double. So I will just change this to type double and change this to type double.
How did you do the that again?
How did I do what? Which step are you talking about?
Save as.
Oh, I went to the File menu and I hit Save As. Then I changed the 3 to a 4 and click OK.
Okay, so
And then I hovered over the old name and choose the rename option.
rename. Okay, I see it. Thanks.
Mhm.
I guess
Then-
my computer could like cut out a bit.
Oh. So I then changed the variable score1 and score2 as data types. However, notice when I changed their data types on the left-hand side, nothing on the right-hand side errored out, because it is possible for you to accept an integer value and store it in a double, because integer is only 4 bytes and double is 8 bytes. So 8 bytes can easily fit 4 bytes. And the value will be translated over to a double type. This is called implicit type conversion. What is it called? Implicit type conversion. That is automatic type conversion. What I'm doing with integer.parseInt, I'm doing a forced conversion. This is called explicit type conversion. What is it called? Explicit type conversion. So that's the difference. Now come to line number 7. Why is that a problem? Does anybody has any
Because
idea?
we have 2
Mhm.
different variables.
2 different
types.
variables. Well, I mean, like I still score1 plus score2 are declared on line
data types.
Yep. So now score1 and score2 are of data type double. And what is the data type of total?
It needs to be double.
It is right now integer. So what is happening is I'm taking a value of 8 bytes and I'm trying to fit it in 4 bytes, which is called type narrowing. The word is type narrowing, and that's a problem. You cannot type narrow until and unless I do this. I go on the right-hand side and I said, you know, perform the addition. Whatever value comes out, I want to downgrade the value and then store it. This is called forced conversion or forced type narrowing or explicit type narrowing. So let's say I added the values 6.5 and 7.5. Now, it doesn't really make a difference. The answer is 14.0 or 14, right? But if I say 6.5 and 7.9, now the output should be 14.4, but actually what gets stored in the total is 14.4 gets truncated.
Mine is showing me errors.
On line 7?
With the two doubles and then the addition for the total.
Did you make the changes on line 7 that I did? I put that in the parentheses and I wrote int outside.
Can I just share my screen?
Yes.
That's
Yeah, score 1 and score 2 should be in parentheses. Score 1 plus score 2, that whole operation should be in parentheses. Yeah, close it on, yeah. So you're first adding, and then, okay. Then on lines 8 and 9, you never mentioned the names of the variables, right? You only wrote double. So it should be double score 2 on the second line and double score 1 on the first line.
oh, my bad.
Okay, now that's
Yeah, now it's fine.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay, so now the other problem is when I run this example, oops, okay. When I run this example, and if I enter 14.5 and I click OK, now that errors out. Why? Because I am entering 14.5, and who am I calling? I'm calling integer.parseInt. Integer doesn't understand decimal numbers. So this is the example of a runtime error. Syntactically, everything is correct, but it failed during runtime. So I should rather, instead of integer.parseInt, I should rather use double dot parse double. And run it. So now if I enter 99.5, it takes it. And then I said 98.3, it takes it. But notice the final answer is 197 instead of 197.8 for that same reason that I am doing explicit type narrowing. Everybody got this to work? Accepting double values, adding them, and getting the output? Okay.
So basically, the int total just forces it to like the most close integer then.
Yeah, so it basically, it just rounds down to the nearest integer,
Okay.
right? Exactly. Now, let's change the total to double, and then let's drop all this that we did before, and now run it again. And this time, when we enter a score, it preserves the decimal. Okay. Okay, everybody got this right? So the next topic in the book is pretty much about this castings and conversions and okay. Now here is another concept to learn. If in a given formula like this one, you have one integer value, which is 37, and one double value, which is 16.73. What do you think will be the data type of the output on the right-hand side?
Double?
Double, okay? It automatically converts it to a higher of the two types. And this idea of promotion is called the unifying type. There's a terminology in Java called unifying type. And what exactly does that mean? That in a given expression, if you have mixed types, then the final answer's type is the type of the highest type in this order. So if you multiply int and a long, the final output will be long. If you multiply an int and a float, the final output will be a float. If you multiply a long and a float, the final output would be a float. If you multiply int, long, float, double, the final output would be a double. If you add a double and a float, the final output would be a double. So the higher order types always is the type of the final answer. Does that make sense, everybody? Now let's move on to, I think that was the last topic, I suppose. Yeah, explicit typecasting. We already looked at that one. And okay, now go to the unit for this week, unit number 1. And I want you to look at the 4 problems that you got to solve. And you're going to do your homework problems the same way. You can use the same project, or you could create a new Java project and call it assignment number 1, and I'll do all 4 of your examples in the same place. Okay. Now comes a question that usually people ask me: how do I locate the files for submission? Very easy. You right click on the project and you go to properties. And again, since it's getting recorded, you can just watch the last 5 minutes of the 10 minutes of the class to watch these steps. Okay. So go to properties, and this is where it tells you the location. Okay. Then you can click this yellow arrow, and it just brings that folder right in front of you where all your files are located. And then you can easily then grab it from there and go from there.
Would you like it compressed?
Okay, now those instructions are all in the homework assignment. Okay, I will now go back to the homework assignment. Okay, if you look at the bottom, if you have to turn in the source code and output screenshot, you will zip all those files. Okay, please do not use the RAR file extent. You just zip them. Just use a zip file. Okay. And these are the 4 problems. And after you solve all 4 of them, you give me the source code. And while you run them, you can take the screenshot of the output, which you could take it right from the console. Okay. Now, I want you to look over all the 4 problems, read all 4 of the problems, and let me know if you have any questions about any of the problems that you need more explanation.
Do you want us to just make up a employee salary?
Yeah. I mean, like anywhere I am asking you to do stuff, you just make up the numbers.
Okay. Yep, everything seems pretty straightforward.
So for each problem, are we creating a static main or a static void main?
Yeah, each problem will be a separate file, just like we have separate files under the same project. So you'll
Oh.
create, yeah, so they could be files under the same project, the in-class project that we did, or you could create a separate Java project and in which you can create all four. But you don't have to have a separate project for each one of them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Because C# would force you to do that, but Java lets you create multiple programs in the same project. Any other questions? Anybody else has? Anybody has any other questions? So how did it go so far?
There's a lot of familiar stuff from C#. It's just knowing the methods to use is, the correct methods to use at the correct time. C#'s a little bit more complicated though, because you can't just like click over it and it'll fix it for you like this does. So I guess that's a nice tool.
Okay, cool. So yeah, as I said earlier in the class that you will see a lot of the C# syntax. It will be easier to follow in terms of basic syntax, but starting from next week, you may start seeing some variations. Like we will do procedural oriented programming like approach, like we'll be creating functions and you will get to see like, oh, okay, a lot of the stuff is very much similar from C#, but maybe with some minor differences, right? So for example, in C# you have in-out operators, in-out parameters. We don't have in-out parameters in Java. It's just like straight out parameters. So those kind of things, those are language specifics that you don't see in other languages that you have in one language.
Cool.
Okay, so yep. So let me know if you guys have any questions during the week, and I'll see you guys in another class if you're taking more than one classes with me, or I'll see you guys next week.
All right. Have a good night.
You
Yep,
too.
see you in the next one.
Take care.
Yep, you
Have a good
too.
one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Good night.